Hey guys, this is Salty. Welcome to my new and completely updated Skyrim Beginner's Guide for 2024, featuring my all-time favorite build, the Stealth Archer. In my opinion, this is one of, if not the very best builds for beginners, and it also happens to be one of the strongest and the most fun to play in the game. In this guide, I will be going over which race, which sex, which attributes, skills, and perks to take. I'll be discussing how to easily make the best armor, the best weapons, and the best arrows. I'll also be sharing my personal tips and tricks to make sure you can enjoy a super smooth start to Skyrim. Alright then, let's get straight into it. Okay, let's talk about race. So for this build, you'll want to select either Khajiit, Bosmer, Orsimer, or Breton. Now, you're probably thinking either Khajiit and Bosmer may be the obvious choice for a Stealth Archer build, given their respective +10 to Archery and +10 to Sneak skill bonuses. However, these small initial buffs are actually rendered pretty much useless by the time you reach the mid-game. What we are more interested in are special abilities, and for pure damage output, the Orsimer are the strongest race in the game with their special ability Berserker Rage. Berserker Rage doubles damage for 60 seconds, and this stacks with the deadly aim perk, which we'll be taking later. This equates to a whopping 6 times damage when Berserker Rage is active. It's crazy. The other and arguably better option is the Breton. Their passive special ability will give you a +25% magic resistance. Given how quickly we will be dropping melee targets before they can even engage us, it is the magic casters in Skyrim which will quickly become one of the Stealth Archer's biggest threats. Paired with the Agent of Mara for a further +15% magic resistance, as well as a few key during enchantments, you should be able to reach the game's 85% resist magic cap with ease. So the TLDR here is Orsimer for pure damage output, Breton for defense. When it comes to choosing the sex of your character, you should feel free to choose either male or female, but if you are looking to make your character as strong as possible, then I highly recommend selecting female. After completing a quest called the Heart of Dibella for the Temple of Dibella in Markarth, you will gain the Agent of Dibella passive ability, which grants a whopping +10% damage to members of the opposite sex. Given that the majority of the enemies you will face in Skyrim are male, means that choosing to be female is essentially choosing to deal 10% more damage, which is massive. For your attributes, I recommend completely disregarding Magicka for this build and dumping all of your points into health and stamina. Aim to have around twice as much health as you have stamina. The only reason we would potentially look at placing points into Magicka would be to take the Muffle spell in the early to mid game, which renders the caster's footsteps completely silent. However, as soon as you join the Dark Brotherhood, you will gain access to a pair of boots with the Muffle effect, which will render those points into Magicka wasted. Important side note here, wait until your character is level 32 before beginning the Trinity Restored quest. This will ensure that you receive the absolute highest level of Nightingale armor, which includes the Nightingale boots. Acquired at level 32 or higher, these boots provide a 100% Muffle effect, which is essential for making our Stealth Hunter almost undetectable. Alright then, let's take a look at skills and perks. You will always want to focus on your combat skills first. For our Stealth Archer build, this means, surprise surprise, focusing on Archery, Sneak, and Light Armor, and in that order. I'll go over the best order for you to take your perks, and I'll briefly touch on each skill tree and provide some tips, tricks, and recommendations for getting the most out of each. For Archery, I recommend using the Faendal Archery leveling trick to reach level 50 at the start of the game. This is covered in the tips and tricks section as well. When you reach level 90, complete the Composure, Speed, and Precision quest. This is available at Angie's Camp in the Gerald Mountains south of Valkyria. Now, the reason we do this at Archery level 90 is because you can no longer gain skill points from trainers at this point, and this makes the quest reward of +6 Archery skill points extremely valuable. Let's talk about Sneak. First up, don't travel via horse. Sneak everywhere possible until your Sneak reaches level 100. 1 point in Stealth makes you +20% more difficult to detect, whereas subsequent points only add +5%, which is why I only take 1 point here. Backstab is purely a prerequisite for Deadly Aim, which, as mentioned earlier, gives our Sneak attacks ×3 damage. These are the only skills you need to worry about in Sneak, really. Okay, and Light Armor allows for quieter sneaking, slows the wearer less, and weighs less. Skyrim has a maximum armor cap, which means that light armor will eventually offer as much armor as heavy armor. Leveling light armor can be tricky because you gain points in it simply by being hit. As a Stealth Archer though, we will generally be dropping our opponents from a distance before they can reach us. Brawling early on is a good way to get a few points in, but don't stress and do not rush light armor in the early game. It is literally just a safety precaution in case an enemy gets past our arrows and starts smashing us in the face. Once your progression into these trees starts to slow down, you will want to start placing points into the following secondary skills: smithing, enchanting, and alchemy. These are all used to improve our armor and weapons. With smithing, you should be looking to complete the Unfathomable Depths quest early on, as this will reward you with ancient knowledge, which includes a plus 15% bonus to how quickly you learn smithing. Level up by crafting iron daggers. We'll use these later to actually level up our enchanting as well, so they won't be wasted. And we'll also be using smithing to craft our best arrows and jewelry, but I'll cover more of that later. You want to work your way through the light armor side of the smithing tree, and eventually we'll be using smithing to create a set of studded dragon scale armor and a legendary dragon bone bow. I would say prioritize smithing perks over enchanting perks, since smithing levels up substantially slower. Okay, and on to enchanting. So firstly, you should complete the Black Star quest given by Arena Lenneth in the Shrine of Azuna. Side with Nelkar to receive the Black Star. This is a reusable black soul gem and extremely important for serious enchanting. Enchanting is not a particularly important skill until later in the game, but it can become the strongest of all. Focus on questing in the Dwemer ruins, where you will find a wealth of soul gems of all sizes. As mentioned before, we'll be leveling up enchanting by enchanting iron daggers with the Banish enchantment. Rather than reading them all out, I will list the enchants you should be keeping an eye out for in the description below, as well as a list of the best enchants for each item slot. Okay, and on to alchemy. Alchemy is primarily used in the late game. The main purpose of alchemy in this build is to create Fortify enchanting and smithing potions. You will want to start collecting alchemy ingredients early on, however. Most containers in the game reset, meaning they cannot be used for storage, so you will want to acquire a house as soon as possible. The containers in the abandoned house in Markareth do not reset, however, so they can be used for storage until you can afford one. Again, in the description below, I will make a list of the most important alchemy potions to make. For other perks, once you put all 47 points into the required ones above, I would recommend taking Augmented Flames from the Destruction Tree to further enhance fire-based weapons, and Extra Pockets from the Pickpocket Tree just for quality of life. Okay, on to Standing Stones. I'll just touch on this briefly, but Standing Stones provide additional bonuses to your character. You can only have one Standing Stone benefit at a time though. For this build, there are two Standing Stones we'll be using. The first is the Thief Stone. You'll be organically finding this after finishing up in Helgen at the start of the game. The Thief Stone provides you with plus 20% increase to the speed at which your character learns archery, alchemy, light armor, pickpocket, sneak, and speed skills. Exceptionally handy for this build. However, once your archery and sneak are mastered, you should switch to the Lady Stone, which you will find on a small island in Lake Ilinalta. This increases your health and stamina regen by a whopping 25%. Okay, let me talk to you about arrows. Arrows are, perhaps not surprisingly, very important for the stealth archer build. The type of arrow that you use will directly influence the amount of damage you deal. Early on, we'll be using iron arrows, farmer arrows, and forsworn arrows, which is fine, but eventually we want to up our game and start using the strongest variants. Now, assuming that you have the Dawn Guard add-on, and I'm assuming you do in 2024, the real solution to making decent arrows is using a pickaxe and a woodcutter's axe to craft your own. Keep these two items in your inventory at all times. Whenever you see an ore vein, mine it. Do not be afraid to get greedy with your ores. Smelt your ores into ingots at a smelter outside mines or near blacksmiths. To make steel ingots, you need to combine iron ore and corundum ore. Gold ore, silver ore, and quicksilver ore are not used to craft arrows, but are useful for other things later, such as jewelry. To create arrows, you need the ingots and firewood. Firewood is free, just find a chopping block at one of the settlements, click, and your axe will auto-equip. Each session yields 6 pieces of wood. 1 ingot plus 1 firewood at a forge or anvil will yield 24 arrows. I'll list the different arrow types in the description below and what's needed to craft them. Okay, let me go over some tips and tricks for you guys. At the lumber mill in Riverwood, after escaping from Helgen at the start of the game, there is a wood elf named Faendal. Pick up the lovely letter quest from him and be sure to side with Faendal when handing it in to Camilla Valerius at the Riverwood Trader. Right, and you'll now be able to take Faendal as a follower. And the reason we want Faendal as a follower is primarily because he happens to be an adept level archery trainer. You can pay to train with him and then access his inventory and just take your gold back. Keep Faendal as a follower until you reach level 50 in archery. Okay, and I'll let you know where you can get a really great bow to start the game. After completing the Unbound, the first quest in the game, and a lovely letter as mentioned above, head to Jorvaskar, Mead Hall of the Companions. Do this before anything else. In the lower floor of Jorvaskar, find Alira's bedroom where you'll find a locked display case. You should have a few lockpicks by this stage, so crack it open and grab your rewards. Inside, you'll find an Elvin Bow and an archery skill book. Just make sure you save before you do this, because this is an expert level lock and you may fail a couple of times. Okay guys, and perhaps the most important tip I can give you is just relax and have fun. Skyrim is an absolutely massive game and it is absolutely worthwhile thoroughly exploring it. Just allow yourself to become completely immersed in what is arguably the greatest RPG ever made. You won't regret it. And there you go guys. guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and found the guide useful. Feel free to hit me up in the comments if you have any questions or feedback. As always, my name is Salty, and I will catch you next time. Cheers.